Okay, so this is absolute number 8, and this is the quality that I call the rock solid quality. The rock solid absolute, because it is the absolute that when other people see it in you, they are going to consider you a rock solid individual. Someone who is not the victim of circumstances. The person who's in control regardless of what happens. And you all know people like that. And it puts them up to here in your eyes. And so let's talk about it. This takes me back about 10 years ago when I was on a golf trip with a friend of mine named Chris Littleton. Now, Chris is a tour manager. He works for all the elite recording artists. Since I've known him, he's been managed the tours for the Eagles, Tim McGraw, J-Lo, Celine Dion. The list goes on and on. And it's not like he can't keep a job. He's going from star to star. No, they schedule their stuff when Chris is ready. He's sought after, and he's very successful, and he's the best in the business. And he is right there with the principal performer at all times. And I always thought, well, Chris he's plugged in. Somehow he got into this, and people like him, and so he's got this job. But I found out a little bit more about him on our golf trip. He invited me to play at a resort for 3 days north of Atlanta. And on Sunday, the third day, just a few hours before we would depart and go home, we were on the 11th hole, and the beverage cart girl came by and said, "Hey, can I get you something to drink?" Chris said, "Yeah, I'd like a Gatorade. Bobby, you want a Gatorade? That's 2 Gatorades." And she said, "Okay, perfect." She pulled a couple bottles out of the ice and said, "That's $6. Chris pulled out his wallet and said, all I have is $100. And she said, "Well, that's okay. I'll bring you your change back when I come back around. I'll be making another loop." And that worked out fine. We agreed. But she never came back. And when we got done, you could tell Chris was a little bit annoyed. We thought for sure, because typically you see the beverage cart girl about every 4th or 5th hole. And somehow she escaped us. But when we went in, Chris asked the guy behind the counter, "Hey, have you seen the beverage cart girl? She owes me $94. I mean, I'm going to tip her, but I've got to get my change back first." The kid behind the counter said, "She's gone for the day." "She's gone for the day?" "Yeah, it's slow, so she just left." "Well, she owes me my $94. I'm going to get my money back. Is her boss here?" "No, no one's here in food and bev." No one's here in food and bev. So she took my $94, and come on, can you call her? Help me out here. He said, "No, I don't have her number. But I'll tell you what, I'll get your number." Chris looked down. He looked back up. He smiled and said, "No, thank you. Let's go, Bobby." And we started walking out of there. I said, "Are you kidding me? You're just going to let that slide?" He said, "I've got to, Bobby. We got to catch a flight." I said, "Man, I'd be upset if I were you." We're doing the hurried walk through the parking lot. He said, "Oh, I was, Bobby. For a second, I was livid. I couldn't believe that had happened, that she'd gotten me. But then I realized there's nothing I can do about it. If I'd given him my number and waited for her to call, and then she never called, I'd be thinking about it on the flight, and then be calling her boss for the next 2 or 3 days. Look, I made a mistake. I let her keep that $94. She got me. Now I have to put it behind me. For my own mental health, I have to put it behind me." And when we got to the car, he said, "Bobby, wait a second. Look back there." And I looked back at the waterfall cascading over the 18th green, and Chris smiled at me and said, "Was that a good weekend or what?" I said, "It was great, man. I appreciate you inviting me." He said, "You bet. In fact, I say we do this every year. I love this resort." And we got in the car, and we drove away, and I'm going to tell you this. Since that day, I've looked at Chris through a different lens, and now I'm not so surprised that he's so successful. He's always happy. I knew that. But he's not happy because things always go his way. He's happy because he's not willing to let circumstances dictate his mood, dictate his happiness. Now, I want you to review with me how that conversation went. I said, "Man, I would be upset if I were you." What did he say? He didn't say, "Oh, that's nothing to me. It's just $94. I make 6 figures a month." That's not what he said. He said, "Oh, I was. For a second, I was livid. But then I realized there was nothing I could do about it. I want to make that problem part of my past, not my future, which means I have to let it go." And what does that mean? That means that in the moment, he's not bulletproof. In the moment, he was just as upset as any one of us would have been. But the strength of his character was such that he realized that being upset, being angry and rattled is not a pleasant virtue. There's nothing good about it. And that he would rather shake that feeling than to cultivate it, than to build on it, than to dwell on it. He simply said, "I got to let it go." And when he said, "Hey, Bobby, look back there. Look at the waterfall cascading over the 18th green," that wasn't for me. That was for him. He knew that if he could make me smile, say something pleasant that would bring about a good feeling on my part, that would help get him over the hump. I'm sure that was part of his method of helping himself get over what had just happened. And that's what people who are rock solid can do. They recognize the need to not be angry, to not be rattled if it can do them no good. You know, the great inventor Thomas Edison in 1914, when his laboratory burned to the ground, his entire life's work up in flames before his eyes, when he realized he couldn't save it, what did he do? He said, "Son, go get your mother and tell her to bring all of her friends. They will never see another fire like this as long as they live. Hey, there's nothing I can do about it. I might as well enjoy watching it burn. Hey, Tom, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. We're going to get rained out. Hey, let it rain, man. There's nothing I can do." This quality brings about trust. Why? Because people know that you're not a slave to your emotions. If people are worried that you're going to be in a bad mood simply because the events leading up to this moment weren't so good for you, oh, he had every light that was red on the way to work, now he's upset. They can't trust you. You want the person in charge. You want the person in your life who you know is on an even keel. And their happiness and how well adjusted they are has nothing to do with the circumstances leading up to this moment. You know, Abraham Lincoln said, "Some people complain that rose bushes have thorns. Others rejoice that thorn bushes have roses." Same thing. It's just a matter of how you look at it. Absolute number 8. Let it go, folks. Let it go, whatever it is in this moment that's got you angry and rattled. But you can't fix it. Put it behind you. Or as Chris said, simply let it go. People will marvel at your self-control. And they will do what they can to put you in charge of their affairs, to trust you in charge of whatever it is, because they know that you're not being led around by your emotions. Absolute number 8, whatever it is, simply let it go.